Hello. The topic today is allowing old programming to fall away. And when I'm talking about old programming, I'm talking about the ego. But if you associate the idea of ego with a sense of struggle to make oneself better or to drop something that is a struggle to drop, sometimes it's better to let go of the term ego, to give yourself a break from it if you have used that term to struggle before, or if you've used the word ego when you were identified more with a sense of superiority or inferiority. You would think, my ego is too big, or that guy's ego is really big. If you're used to using it in those terms, or if you recognize that as a pattern in your past, you might want to just drop that, even though it's a nice short word, and say instead the sense of separate self, the sense of vulnerable self. It's a sense, it's an overlay on our experience here that we just assume and we use. But it's falling away now. It's falling away because it's not the truth of who we are. And we're here to realize that in this lifetime and to bring it to bring it online, the realization that the ego was never who we are. It doesn't mean that you have to triumph over ego or get rid of ego. Instead, you could simply realize the truth of who we are. And that is that we are always beautifully differentiated. If you think of differentiated, waves on an ocean, flowers in a garden, if you think of it in a way that maintains your sense that we are all united and all equal, if you think of it in terms of you never truly had an ego, but you attached to the idea or the thought or the programming of it. You took on an identity as a true and real thing that was never your own. It was never true. It was never real. If you think of it in terms of that, then you may leave the idea of struggle behind. It's simply remembering on a consistent basis who you are. What would tempt us to forget? Choices we've made in the past, choices we've made for this sense of separation. We wanted to know how far we could go. What could we do with all of the energy we are? What forms could we take? How could we interact with each other? And we've certainly done a lot of finding out in terms of separation, the idea that we were convincingly separated from each other and vulnerable and capable of hurting each other. We've certainly played in that sandbox for a very long time, but we're now stepping out of the sandbox and remembering that we've been playing. That doesn't mean we make light of anybody's suffering, but it does mean that when we are suffering, we always have the option to remember that we made the choice. We made the choice for this experience. Not in terms of, well, you made the choice for this earth experience, sucker, so nice to meet you, good luck suffering for the rest of your incarnation. It means that in that very moment and all the moments before, you made a choice for perception, to forget who you were. And in any of these moments that we have, we can always make the choice to remember. So the circumstance doesn't matter. The type of feeling we're feeling doesn't matter. We know when it feels tense. We know when it feels off. We know when it feels contracted. And in those moments, Those moments are serving us because they're opportunities to remember. And every time we choose to remember, we're bringing more of our perception of reality online, our perception of the true reality of love that we are, and the love that all others are. So as we continue to encourage ourselves to remember, we not only have a more loving experience of ourselves, but we have a more loving experience of everybody else, and the people who are important to us, and the people we see a lot, and the people we just see on the street. We have a lighter and more connected and more loving experience with everybody. So there's a payoff here that feels personal, but it's collective. So we've given ourselves this personal experience of apparent separation. But if you switch the words out, separation for differentiation, differentiation is a basis for appreciation. Separation, if you believe in being a separate, vulnerable being, is the basis for suffering. And it's hard to convince oneself that suffering is optional when we've made so many choices for separation in this and other lifetimes. But all it takes is a willingness to remember and to remind ourselves. It's really always very, very simple. So if we're making it complicated, we can notice the tension arising, and we can notice, oh, that's the old programming. So in the beginning, I mentioned old programming falling away. If you think of yourself as the computer programmer and you are deprogramming yourself, that puts you in the driver's seat, which is where you've always been. It keeps you in your power. So you're victim to no one or nothing. You've always been the power. You've always had the power, but you chose to forget that. So no matter what level of drama story you could tempt yourself to believe, like, what about mind control? You could find all the evidence in the world that various groups of people are experimenting with, attempting, succeeding with mind control, but there's only the one mind. And at the level of the one mind, beings are interacting harmoniously, and you can always refer to that level. And once you refer to that level, you can see the true beings behind every role player in this dense level drama where there are villains and heroes and victims. You can see the being of light behind every role player here. So I'm always told, pan the camera back, pan the camera way, way back, and see what's really happening here, what you chose. You chose the experience of separation, and you got it. And you can always choose again. So our lives now are about choosing again and choosing again and choosing again throughout the day, so we remember what's really going on here. And as we remember what's really going on here, we bring that experience of unity and peace not only to ourselves, but to others around us.